So, you want to know how to survive the notorious architecture crit, short for critique, also known as presentation, review, jury, death sentence. Let's refer to it as crit or critique, shall we? Students all over the world complain and stress and shed tears over the dreaded critique. But it does not have to be that way. Hold those tears back, son or daughter. No, that sounds weird. Hold those tears back, my friend. I've got 9 or maybe 10 tips to not only help you survive the architectural crit, but thrive the architecture crit. That doesn't really make sense, does it? I think you get the point. So first of all, it's okay to be nervous, especially in your first semesters. Architectural crits got me a nervous wreck for sure in my first semesters. And if you're the last one to present, oh boy, I feel for your friend. I have some sympathy for you. Anxiously waiting, sweating in your hands, holding that last minute drawn up written notes, reading them for the 442nd time and still stuffing up on the 3rd sentence. I feel your friend, and it's okay. It's okay to be nervous. It's not okay to not know what you were talking about. We'll move into a bit more about this in the last tip, so stick around, we'll get into that later. Let's move on to tip number 2. Knowing that you are not being criticized yourself as a person, but your ideas. The crit isn't an attack on you, and I mean that. Don't take it to heart. There's no point being hard on yourself if your design sucks. Guess what? My first designs always suck. My friends' designs always suck at first. Frank Gehry and Zaha Hadid's designs always suck at first, at least during architecture school. I can't really say that anymore because they are professionals, but more than likely their first ideas, I don't know how many ideas they'd go through that get scrapped, but their first ideas I guarantee suck. But how do you think they got to where they are now? By taking the advice they're given to better themselves and better their skills. I wish I could rename the architectural crit to being architecture advice, because really that's what it is. Your teachers aren't taking a stab at your project or you, they're giving you advice and feedback to improve you and improve your skills and take you to next levels as an architecture student. So don't take negative feedback personally. And I know there are some really toxic and harsh teachers out there who enjoy stepping on people and stepping on people's models and ideas and crushing hopes and dreams. I know, so it's not easy if that's you, but that's tip number 2, to not take it personally. Listen to what they're saying with an open mind. Smile and accept that you're not perfect. No architecture student is, hence that's why we're not designing real buildings. It's expected we suck, and this is the best time to just learn and try new things and practice without the limitations of judgment or perceived failure. So leading on to number 3, this is leading on from the last point, but if a client doesn't like something, you need to be able to take their ideas, the problems they have, and create tailored solutions. You do that by listening and taking their advice. So architecture crits really is just an introduction to what it's like as an architect in the profession. And guess what? In the end, you're not living in the building you're designing. So that's tip number 3. Don't get stuck on a design just because you've invested time into it. Experiment and take criticism on board to create and produce something great. That's what architecture is all about. It's about adapting and iterating designs, taking the problems and the objectives a client has and creating tailored solutions. So tip number 4 for architectural crits surviving and thriving is to not read off of your presentation board. This comes back to knowing what you're talking about and being well prepared. If you're constantly looking back at your presentation sheet, it clearly shows that you don't know what you're talking about and you need something to back you up. And most of the time, a picture tells a lot more words than what words do. So what you can do, you can actually use pictures, videos, animations to work for you and do the talking for you. You need to have an objective for your presentation. A lot of students just go into their crits and explain what they've done and why. They'll kind of just make stuff up on the spot and they'll talk about their site analysis and which way the wind goes and what materials they used and where the flaws are. And by the end of the presentation, they've said nothing useful. They've just talked. Look at your criteria, look at your brief, write key points that you need to address and tailor a presentation to that. And this also leads into tip number 5, don't repeat information. Like I said earlier, a picture tells 1,000 words, except I kind of jumbled up that quote before. That's what I was trying to get at. A picture tells 1,000 words. You don't need to repeat information. If you have plans and sections and perspectives showing what the materials are, which way your building's oriented, and how the walls connect to the floors, you just don't need to explain that again. Once you realize that your teachers actually have eyes, believe it or not, you can understand that there's no point repeating information that's already been presented. Only use your verbal words to express key ideas and points that are important that hasn't been addressed in the presentation. Keep it short, sharp, and shiny. Number 6, practice makes perfect. You need to leave at least a full day to prepare for your presentation, writing up a script, laying out your drawings, and then you need at least another full day, and I say at least, you need at least another full day to practice then. Practice, practice, practice. Presenting is a skill in itself that is definitely worth learning. You've got to realize that the reason why we stand up in front of our tutors and in front of our class to present our work is because that's what you do as an architect. It's practice for when you need to present your work to a client. And you need to think, once you leave architecture school, are you going to be ready to present your work to a client on your own? When you're practicing your presentation, consider the way you move and gesture. Use your voice. Are you monotone, or are you expressing your words and emphasizing important information with the tone of your voice? Are you talking at a reasonable and understandable rate? Record and time yourself presenting until you can go through it at a reasonable pace that is clear and easy to understand without the need for notes. And trust me, this takes time. I've spent over 20 hours just practicing a script in front of the mirror, changing the way I use my voice and moving my body and gesturing, doing every single movement with an intention. And when I went to present this project, this was in my second year. This was the most confident I've ever been presenting in front of a big audience. This was at least 100 students, as well as my tutors. And I had great feedback from my tutors because of the amount of time I spent presenting and practicing my presentation. So tip number 7, at the end of it all, you finally get your grade back. And it's not quite what you expected. Don't dwell on your grade. It really doesn't matter what grade you get. It's important to not compare your scores with friends or other people in your class. Consider the feedback and the grade you've received to indicate where you can improve for next time. It's just a learning experience, that's all. It doesn't matter if you get a bad grade, because in the long term of things, you've got a goal that you're working towards. As long as you're working one small step at a time towards that goal and improving with everything you do, who cares if you barely passed or failed in the worst case scenario? Even if you only take one thing away from your project and your feedback, you're going to be getting better even if it's just 1% at a time. The goal isn't to get a high grade. The goal is to learn the necessary skills you need to feel comfortable working in the real world as a graduate. So number 8, I mentioned earlier that it's okay to be nervous. It's not okay to not know what you're talking about. And as long as you've spent the time to practice, you'll know what you're talking about and you won't go all red like I used to when I presented in my first couple of years. You'll get confident speaking and your passion really shines through once you get confident talking. It makes all the difference, trust me. A lot of students work really hard on their projects and then it comes time to present and they just bottle up. Yeah, so this is my design. It's got some walls and nice site analysis here, and this has a roof on it. No! Be passionate about it. Have some enthusiasm when you're presenting. Show that you're excited about what you've been working on furiously for the last 6 weeks. Show you're genuinely interested in what you're talking about, and it will surely rub off on the people who are listening to you. So number 9 is, that's really kind of hard to do. So number 9 is that I've found the more time you spend working on something, the better it's going to be. If I were to graph the students' grades against how much time they spend on a project, there would be a clear relation to show that those who spend more time on their projects will have the higher grades. And ultimately, they're the ones who learn the most. They're the ones who are mastering the profession and getting better at what they want to do every single day in the future. If you hand up your work with the bare minimum requirements and the bare minimum amount of effort, you're not going to be progressing that much. Put in more time and find ways to get fired up about your projects and work hard to produce something amazing to you at your level, not what someone else is doing. Not at the level of Zaha Hadid, not at the level of your friend who's in your class next to you. at your level? What is your bar that you need to be aiming for? And how can you compare yourself to who you were yesterday to keep on improving yourself and your skills and your designs, rather than trying to look at an unachievable goal of what someone else is doing? Just look at what you were doing yesterday and try to improve on that and get better every single day. So last but not least, number 10, really, your teachers just want to see that you are trying. Even if your design and concept sucks, if you're actively engaging in class and with your tutors, adapting to the suggestions they're giving and putting in careful effort to produce your best work, even if it's not the best work, you'll progress and learn as much as you can, which will be noticed by your teachers and indicated by a high grade. So guys and girls, thank you so much for listening to me talk. I really appreciate you guys sticking around here till the end. Let me know down below, did you have a favorite point or a favorite tip from this video? Do you have a favorite tip for architectural crits? Let me know down below, I'd love to hear from you. If you haven't already, please do consider subscribing to the YouTube channel with that button down below. And if you want to check out another video, you can do with the button to the side here. And if you want to look at something YouTube's suggesting, there's another one down the bottom here. Thank you guys, and I'll catch you in the next episode. Take care, guys.